welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined every Monday and Wednesday by my main man, Stephen Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or anywhere you get your podcasts. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're down bad. But for the first time in what seems like forever, they are admitting that they're down bad. First step in solving a problem is admitting that you have one. I think this is a step in the right direction. But we'll dive into everything that Mike Tomlin said yesterday, everything that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers present in the next five days. But first, it's a beautiful day here in the Burgh. It's one of those days where I know I'm going to wear this going to practice, and I know I'm going to be pouring sweat leaving practice. Love those days. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling very good. Yeah, I know the type of days you're talking about. It's been the past month, it feels like, but yeah, no, I'm ready to get into it.
I'm also ready to get into it. Pittsburgh Steelers 1-4. You want to say this is rock bottom, but it only feels like rock bottom because everybody had higher expectations at this point in the season. You look at history. Last season, it was the same thing. You were sitting here 1-3, 1-4. The Pittsburgh Steelers season was over. There was no coming back. I think the one big factor was Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger is a Hall of Famer, first ballot. You have a guy like that, changes everything. You know what I mean? You look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. You look at the Green Bay Packers right now. You look at teams that have that Hall of Fame quarterback, and even if they are struggling, you have the sense that they could turn it around because that quarterback's there. Even quarterbacks that play, Russell Wilson stinks right now. If at any point the Denver Broncos turned it around, you wouldn't be surprised. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they got a rookie at quarterback. It's the first time in 18 years. It's a whole new dynamic. Mike Tomlin spoke yesterday. He admitted that things are bad. Did you take that as this is as bad as it's going to get? Or did you take that as we just need to shut some people up? Because I think it could go one of two ways.
I think it was just honesty. I think it was exactly kind of the thing that you described where, okay, last season they start 1-4, but there was reason for hope. There were factors within that team that you thought that made you think, okay, they can definitely turn this thing around. With this situation in this year, it's pretty obvious that things are going to get worse before they get better.
Yep.
So I think that was just Tomlin kind of being honest and saying, look, this is going to be a process instead of there's a car alarm going on inside the house.
I could hear it. Southside. You got to love Southside.
Yeah. Hopefully they turn it off.
Is that another car on?
No, I don't know what that is.
You got to love Southside.
Yeah, you really do. But it's like they don't. It's obvious that this is going to get worse before it gets better. I think that was Tomlin just being honest and announcing to everyone that, look, we are not going to just be able to will our way out of this. There has to be kind of bigger changes, and we have to be ready to make those changes. And that's why I kind of, more than any time, Tomlin has kind of thrown this part out. He has said, we are going to make changes, and these change. I think he used the one line, people are going to be surprised at how willing we are to make changes. And I'm more inclined to believe him now than I was maybe a couple of weeks ago. Because just the circumstances seem that dire, and he seems that kind of at the end of his wits, I guess.
He really does. This is the first time that you watched Tomlin talk, and it didn't seem like he was just like, yeah, I have to stand up here and defend my team. Like, he looked at it and acknowledged fully, just like you said, it was honesty. We stink right now. We are not a good football team, but we have the pieces to be a good football team. And I think that's held true for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, I don't expect the Steelers to win a Super Bowl, but I do think that they're capable of winning 9 games, 8 games. Like the Steelers, we talked on Monday. I don't believe the Steelers are as talented as we all thought they were going to be coming into the season. I still don't think they're anywhere near the worst team in the NFL. Like, There's a wide gap between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Commanders, the Carolina Panthers, those types of teams. The Steelers have some talent. I think Tomlin knows that. I agree with you. I think for the first time you watched him talk and he said, we're open to making change, but we're not just going to make changes for the sake of change. Did you take that as we understand we need to make changes, but we're not making changes just to please people? We're going to make changes because we need to make changes. Or did you take that as we're going to look into changes, nothing's going to happen?
I took it more as we're not going to make changes just for the sake of making changes, but we're definitely looking into them. And they're considering them seriously. I mean, at this point, you can't not take them seriously. And I think Mike Tomlin's not been afraid to make a couple changes. It hasn't been a complete overhaul of his roster or his starting lineups or anything like that, but he certainly made changes, going to DeMarvin Leal. Pickett is obviously a big one. But there's been a bit of a crack in that kind of classic Tomlin stubbornness that we kind of know about him. So I take it more. I think those are signals that he knows where this team is at, knows that the future is not necessarily as bright in the short term. So he is going, I think those, when he says that, I took it more as, yes, these are things that are going to happen if they are, obviously with the caveat that they have to be productive and fruitful. But, I think it's real. I think the sense that things are going to change is real and not just kind of Tomlin blowing smoke at us.
What do you think changes? Do you think there's a change to the play caller on offense? Do you think Tomlin takes a step back in his role on defense? Do you think there's lineup changes coming? What do you think happens?
I think it'll definitely be more in the kind of play caller. Like, I don't think they're going to fire Matt Canada anytime soon.
No, not during the season.
No, but I think they are going to, if they do anything, it would be to take him back, give him less responsibility, kind of help him, maybe force him to share it with Pat Sullivan a little bit. Maybe Tomlin does step back from the defense a little bit, like you said. That seems like a unit that can kind of manage itself, just given the experience that those coaches have and kind of the relative talent that they have there. And Tomlin kind of takes a heavier hand in with the offense. I think that's something that you could see happen. That would probably be the biggest thing.
Yeah, I looked at it like there's got to be some change when it comes to the offensive play caller coming. I don't expect Tomlin to yank Canada out of here and be like, hey, you're just going to sit around for the rest of the season. What I do expect is for somewhat of a complete overhaul of what's happening on the field, maybe simplify it with changes to where they're directing plays, and probably play calling duties in general. Like, I don't think that this is where it gets difficult, because I don't think Tomlin's going to look at this situation and say Mike Sullivan is going to be the guy that calls plays for us for the rest of the season. I just don't think that he's going to do that in this situation. It concerns me because Mike Tomlin is not an offensive head coach. He's never been an offensive head coach. So to say that he's going to take over play calling duties is terrible, because he's a bad defensive play caller at times. So I can only imagine what he's going to do on offense with a scheme that he doesn't even know how to run. It makes me skeptical, I want to say. Like, I agree with you. I think that changes are going to come. What those changes are, I still have no idea, because they need to be remove Matt Canada from power and figure out a way to work that out. But how you do that and how Tomlin's going to go about that with his stubbornness is a huge question mark and a bit of a red flag, because you can't have that head coach calling offensive and defensive plays. You're going to end up in a situation like, I can't even think, like Mike McCarthy in Dallas. You know what I mean? Like a guy who just wants to run this entire team, that's why you hire offensive coordinators, is to run a team. It's I don't know. It's a very difficult question to answer. Why does Tomlin keep back coordinators so long? I don't know. It's a loyalty thing. It's a real weird loyalty thing. It's also Art Rooney. Like, you're not allowed to fire guys. You're supposed to let their contracts run out. That's why there's all, I've heard that Matt Canada's got another year left on his contract and that he's possibly not gone at the end of the season just because Rooney doesn't do that. The Steelers don't do that. So I don't know. What do you think the breaking point is for drastic change? Like if you think that this week it's just like minor changes to how things are being called or things like that, what is the breaking point to somebody's probably not getting fired, but somebody's getting yanked of their duties offensively or defensively? Because I don't think Terrell Austin's out of the mix here. I don't think that he's on the hot seat as much as Matt Canada, but I think that Brian Flores puts a lot of pressure on him right now as a defensive coordinator who's struggling, even with the injuries. Like you got to be able to produce, and I just don't think that the Steelers have done that, even with their depth. So what's the breaking point when it comes to all this?
Well, I think that Dolphins game is going to be a real, right before the bye week. I think that's going to be a real kind of litmus test for this team. You looked at it a couple weeks ago, and it was one of those. It was the end of a real tough stretch that you thought, okay, that's going to be, their 7th loss, I guess, at this point going into the bye week, and you thought that would be it. But, given their quarterback situation, that's a game that's winnable, and that's a game that you probably should be able to put up some points in. That's a game you should be really competitive in. And if they're not really competitive in that game, and they probably should win that game, that's I think where you start to, and it gives you, it's good timing with the bye week, coming right after it. You get a chance to look at a lot of tape and reevaluate kind of the first half of the season, pretty much.
Yep.
So I think that if the Dolphins game goes poorly, that's where you could see things start to turn over and things start to get a little ugly.
Yeah, ugly is a great word. I agree. I think that things could get a little ugly because I think they're going to acknowledge certain things. Like I take yesterday as a huge positive for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I look at it and go, this is the first time that they have acknowledged how bad they are. We have been down like this. I have covered this team for 4 years. In those 4 years, they've lost Ben Roethlisberger, started 1-5, and have totally collapsed from an 11-0 season. I have seen the absolute worst of what the Pittsburgh Steelers have been in the last decade. This is the first time through any of that, through the Duck Hodges days, through the, losing 5 in a row, through the getting smacked by the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs, through everything. This is the first time that Mike Tomlin's taken a podium and said, we stink. We know that this is going to be a grind to get out of where we are right now, and we aren't going to solve it in a day. Aren't going to solve it today is huge, because it's always been, we have the talent, we have Ben Roethlisberger, we have this, we have that, season's not over, blah, blah, blah. Now it's like, look, this could get real ugly before it gets better, but we're going to try to make it better. I agree with you. I think that they look at the second half of the season. You come out of the bye week. It's their easiest schedule ahead of them after that. If they don't turn anything around before then, they could use that even if they go in 1-7. I mean, we've seen crazier things in the NFL than to go 8-0 in the second half of the season, especially with the team that has a spark at quarterback and that can make changes on the offense. If they could do that, if they could all get healthy, if TJ Watt comes back, I mean, there's nothing stopping Mike Tomlin from going, this is the deadline. You have until here to prove us. If not, you're gone. And I'm directing that at Matt Canada mostly. But I think both sides of the ball. I think Terrell Austin's not off the hot seat right now. So I agree with you. I think that's when the first real big move could come for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the other part of yesterday that we need to talk about is his evaluation of Naji Harris, which was big, and the fact that everybody on this team is now injured, which is concerning. But maybe it's not as concerning that it's happening right now. But first, let's take a second for a word from our boys at Manscaped. It is fresh ball fall. It's the season of pumpkin spice and making sure your crotch looks nice. That means sipping cider in a fall breeze and using Manscaped products to trim your balls with ease. That's right. Today's show is brought to you by Manscaped, a company here to make sure that your foliage isn't the only thing that's shedding its excess leaves. Heck, Even Mother Nature knows it's time to lose the excess clutter for fall. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with our code STEELERS20. Whether you're brand new or already with us at Manscaped, you can use the crown jewel of care for your family jewels, the Platinum Package 4.0. With this glorious package, you can align your entire hygiene routine all in one swoop. Inside this 10-part Platinum Package is everything you know and love about the Performance Package, plus some shower goodies included to elevate your grooming game to Platinum. The Lawnmower 4.0 body trimmer and Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer feature proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to protect your delicate parts and holes. Both are waterproof, so you can keep scaping even as the weather's changing. In addition to shaving, you can now completely upgrade your shower routine with the Ultra Premium Body Wash and Ultra Premium 2-in-1 Shampoo and Conditioner. You'll have your skin and hair feeling hydrated and smelling fresh. Don't forget to apply the aluminum-free Ultra Premium deodorant, and don't worry, it's not pumpkin spice. It's cologne quality fragrance. But we shouldn't have a signature scent just for our pits. Use the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray to make sure your go-to smell is top shelf and not sweaty balls. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Platinum Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag, both specifically made to hold your goodies. Get the Platinum Package this fall. These products are guaranteed to hit for your dangly bits. Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free shipping with our code STEELERS20. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and all you have to do is use our code STEELERS20. Manscaped, clear out the leaves. It's your tree trunks. Time to shine. Shout out Manscaped. Love them. Love them. This is a great way to start this conversation off, actually. None of the injuries is to blame. None of the staff is to blame with multiple injuries. I think the whole staff is to blame not because of multiple injuries, but you can't use injuries as an excuse. A team should be deep. The Buffalo Bills missed their entire starting secondary, won 38-3. 38-3 without their entire start. They have the best secondary in the NFL. Not one of them, except for their rookie first-round pick, who covered Pickens all game, was healthy. And their nickel corner out of Pitt, actually. Pretty sure it's Teron Williams was their nickel corner, correct?
That's not a guy who went to Pitt.
Who was Caron?
So Hamlin was the safety who went to Pitt.
Yeah. Hamlin was there.
Dane Jackson was the corner who.
Yeah,
I think he's
and Dane
playing
Jackson
straight corner because he started in their opener against the Rams. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a different guy then. It's a Williams guy. I thought he went to Pitt. I guess he didn't go to Pitt. It's my bad. Either way, you miss a lot of guys in that on that team. You missed your inside linebacker in Edmonds. Still won 38-3. Unexcusable, in my opinion. Like, it's tough. There's some things to look over. You know, you're not gonna have much success against star wide receivers with James Pierre and Josh Jackson playing corner. Understandable. Minka Fitzpatrick is clearly hurt. Understandable. I still put a lot on this team, and maybe not the coaching staff, but you know, NFL teams have been in situations, the Steelers have been in situations where guys like Duck Hodges needed to win football games and have done enough to win football games. You have to look at these guys and say, somebody's got to step up. And if nobody's able to step up, that goes back to your head coach, that goes back to your GM, and that goes back to your assistant coaches that aren't preparing these guys or developing anybody correctly to step into those situations. Correct? Not correct?
Yeah, I'd agree.
So the biggest injury, Naji Harris. Tomlin did not acknowledge that Naji is hurt. According to everybody in Pittsburgh, he is as healthy as can be, which is the farthest thing from true. And personally, I think that you do your running back a justice by telling everybody that he's hurt. I think that you're just hurting Najee's reputation. You're getting all the fans even more angry with him by hiding the fact that the dude's dealing with 2 injured feet. And I don't know like what the fines are for that that'll come their way or whatever, But I think when you were asked the question, when Mike Tomlin was asked the question about Naji Harris's performance, he should have said he's got some injuries going on. It's affecting him. We have to work through that. Instead of just totally blowing it off and saying, yeah, he's got to figure it out, but he's missed some time, so he's still knocking the rust off. It's a month and a half into football. This is not rust. This is definitely not rust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was an injury he suffered. Well, one of them was training camp, but the other he suffered in week 1. These are like, they're getting further in the rear view, and if they're not, I don't know, if 3 weeks in, if he's played every game, if he's like not fully healthy, if he's not ready to go, then I don't know, he shouldn't have been out there, especially because, as we talked about on Monday, I think like they have a competent option behind him. It's not like they're, left out to dry if Naji can't go. Like they will be fine if Jaylen Warren's got to take that same number of carries. I think they could do that and be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Jaylen Warren's got to be the guy out there for a majority of the carries. But it does make me nervous. Like, I've gone back and watched the tape a couple of times from Buffalo, and because you can't, a loss like that is really hard to observe everything that went wrong the first time you watch it. The second time you're like, okay, this went wrong, this went wrong. Third time that I watched it was like, I don't know, last night at, I don't know, whenever. I was in bed actually watching it, and all I kept noticing was every time Jaylen Warren ran the football, the defense did not approach him like they were running the football. They played soft almost every single time. So I decided to go back and look at the other games to see if they do the same thing, and it's a reoccurring theme. The defense understands that when Najee's on the field, they have to attack the run. When Jaylen Warren's on the field, they attack the pass, which makes sense. That's going to change. If he's taking more reps, which we both expect him to do, that's what Tomlin said, then I expect defenses to start playing him a little bit more aggressive. I'm not saying that it's gonna destroy him. I think that a lot of people have to overcome this, but I think that's going to be the first test. Is this week against Tampa Bay, they understand that he's now a part of the running game. They're going to attack him as a runner instead of just a pass protector. If he could get around it, that's huge for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Huge. Because if he could and he could put together a good game, and I think he should out-rep Naji this week, I think you move with them moving forward just for a couple of weeks, like even until the bye. Like Naji doesn't have to sit completely, but there's no reason that Naji Harris should be on the field for 40 runs or for 40 reps and 20 runs a game. Like,
right,
it's just not now. Exactly,
right,
especially this week
with Devin White and Vita Vea waiting for him on the other side. Like,
exactly.
Don't make him like bang his head against against those guys for 4 quarters and whatever 25 carries or whatever. Like, this is a great time to give him a rest and to let to see what you actually have with Jaylen Warren. Quite frankly, I think we've all been impressed with what he's done so far. But like you said, this will be a big week for him to actually prove that he has some staying power. In the league.
Yeah, huge staying power. And just to address this real quick, playing hurt is different than playing injured. Naji is injured. Like, it's not like there's aches and pains. He's got a Liz Frank sprain in his foot. He's got another sprain in his other foot. Those are injuries for a running back. They might not be injuries for every position, but the Liz Frank sprain kept Calvin Austin out for well over a month now. Naji Harris has been playing on it after missing 3 weeks of training camp practice. So I would classify that as an injury. But I agree with you. I think this is the week we have to see what we could get out of Jaylen Warren. Do you think that, roster-wise, do you think that there's any possibility that through any of this, you give Anthony McFarland a helmet as well, just to see if you could get some juices out of your running backs? Or because I just don't know if Benny Snell's like an option. Like, Benny Snell hasn't touched the football all season long. I have a hard time saying that he's going to do it in week 6. So do you give Anthony McFarland a helmet, or do you just rock it out with those two and say, this is what we got?
I would love it if they gave Anthony McFarland the helmet. I think that would work out really well for him and them. Just a little bit of a change of pace. Give this offense an injection of speed, which it really doesn't have. I don't think they will unless like this Naji stuff is really catastrophic. I don't know. He's like we said, he's already injured, but they don't really seem to care right now.
Yeah.
Quite honestly. So like, I don't. If this isn't a point where Anthony McFarland gets a helmet and can dress for a game and get 1 or 2 touches here or there, I don't. I'd have to imagine to take something really drastic. I feel like Naji would have to be sat completely, or be inactive completely, in order for that to happen.
Yeah, I just don't like. Do you think it would be better? There's a part of me that's like, it would be better if they just admitted that Naji was injured, shut him down for like 2 weeks, worked with what they had. Like, because it's not a superstar by no means, but you could have a committee back there and Anthony McFarland, Benny Snell, and Jalen Warren, and I'd feel okay about that. I wouldn't feel bad about it.
No, I wouldn't feel bad about that. No, I guess I wouldn't. I think there's, yeah, you just got to make sure you're not completely abandoning one of your most talented offensive players. Like, he's still got to be in there in the mix, if he's healthy enough to go out, like assuming, with all those caveats. But you don't want to, again, you don't want to make a change for the sake of making a change. You don't just want to do something different. It has to be, it's got to be a little thoughtful and a little like, I don't know, like, it's got to be Anthony McFarland cannot just straight split carries.
No. It's got to be Jalen Warren. It's got to be heavy dose of Jalen Warren.
Mm-hmm.
Use Anthony McFarland as a change of pace back, and I still don't think Benny Snell touches the field much, but you have Benny Snell out there. But I just think that right now, like, Najee's just this every time you hand the football to Naji Harris, it's a negative play right now. Even if it is a positive gain, you just look at it like nothing much. There's no momentum being built here. If you can't get 4 yards a run, you're not on pace for a first down. It's just not a good place to be. And there's other concerns there. His vision's really bad right now, like really bad. And I don't know if that's the injury or if that's just who Naji is. And maybe you have to work through that one, but I don't know. Mike Tomlin was super honest about a lot of things yesterday. He was not super honest about Naji Harris, and I get that's to protect the reputation of his star running back and team captain, but we've both sat here for a week, 2 weeks now, talking about how it's just time to acknowledge it and kind of save face or stop saving face and just move on.
Right. Yeah. Just there were times where you're like, Naji just looks slow, and it was a little jarring. Like, you just thought, oh, maybe he's just waiting to get his feet wet. Maybe he's still getting into a rhythm, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Then he just kept doing it. There just kept being holes, and Naji kept not being able to hit him, not being able to hit him with that kind of burst. Like, the Steelers would block a 3-yard play, and he'd get 3 yards,
Yep.
And from Naji, you need a little bit more than that. You need him to be able to create yards for himself, which he wasn't really doing.
Nope. There's a lot of people that, like, there's Naji as a bust pick. Like, there's a lot of people with this opinion. When is a pick a bust? How deep you got to get before you classify Naji as a bust?
I don't know. I mean, because also, like, this wasn't it's really hard for me to put this all on Naji. Like, he touched the ball, 400 times last year as a rookie, and he was just running straight up the middle, like, taking a ton of hits. Like, how much of this is on Naji versus on how Naji was used? Like, it's one thing to call a guy, it's one thing for a guy to not be durable, but it's another thing for your team to run you into injuries,
No, totally run him into. That was their plan for him. The Steelers' plan, which again goes back to Mike Tomlin. Like, Mike Tomlin is a terrible decision maker with certain things. His decisions on how to operate a running back is ridiculously bad. His second biggest flaw. His first biggest flaw is his loyalty to his coordinators and his hiring process there. His second biggest flaw is the fact that he is decades behind the time with a running back. You're going to look at their plan for Naji Harris was he's 24 years old coming in here. He's got one contract in his NFL career before he's pretty much done. We are going to run him as into the ground in those 5 years as humanly possible. Yeah. So you got to put some of that on Mike Tomlin. I agree with you. But I think it's too early. But I think that if he doesn't turn around this year, you have next year, because even, Saquon had a bad year last year, and then here he is this year.
Right. sophomore slumps are real.
They are definitely real. They are definitely real. It's all about that third year, but still, you need better production this year. Unless the Steelers are just giving up on the season, which I don't think that they are, but I think at some point, like, you just yank them a little bit and say, hey, this is a serious thing. You gotta either save yourself or you gotta get better. And I just don't think that he could get better right now. I don't think it's possible. One last thing before we head out of here. I saw a comment way up the top here about who's getting traded before the deadline. Things are down bad. Do you expect a trade to be made within the next couple of weeks, or do you think that the Steelers roster is set, finalized, and we're chilling?
I don't think there's going to be any blockbusters, because I don't know what kind of moves they could make that would make them immediately better.
Do you think there's a name on the block? Or a position that let's go the other way around. Instead of getting traded, do you think there's a position that they try to approach before the deadline? From the outside?
Yeah, I would have said offensive line, but that's been mostly fine. They need corners. They just need depth there. Linebackers too. But I guess you could say everywhere on defense, they just need better depth there. But you'd have to give up one of your really talented players to get that depth. And I just don't know if that makes you better. I don't know what I'm trying to think of a move that you could make that Claypool one I thought was also maybe like Claypool's a guy that I think they could move to, maybe get something for. And I also don't know if they're looking, like you said, I don't think they're quitting on the season, but you also got to start thinking about like draft picks. Like that's going to be really valuable for you moving down the line, especially considering kind of how relatively young a lot of this team is. Like your view should be forward. It should be beyond this season. I think if you're the Steelers making a trade at all before the deadline.
Yeah, I agree. Which things, like, in my opinion, there's no trades coming because you could wait until after the season. Like, nobody's on a deadline for a contract except for Devin Bush, and you're gonna get a pack of Skittles and some marbles for Devin Bush. You're not going to get much for him. So you might as well just let that rock. Chase Claypool, you could trade after the season. I think that's a very likely possibility. Pretty much with everybody else, unless you're trading Benny Snell Jr., which isn't going to happen. There's nobody else that are really on big deals. Nobody's going to take a guy like Chooks or a guy like Miles Jack or James Daniels or anybody because those contracts are huge after this season. So they got to make those decisions. Deontay Johnson isn't going anywhere. The Steelers don't sign somebody to a long-term deal and then say, oh, never mind, you're gone. They're going to work through that one. But I think that right now you're just chilling with what you have, and you got to look forward to who it is. Chase Claypool and Devin Bush and a mid-round pick for Roquan Smith. Would love that. Don't think it would happen, but would love that. And that's another contract you got to pay. You already have the most expensive defense in football. Just don't think it could happen. I think right now is just a point where you're chilling. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're looking at this season and saying, we have 4 weeks to figure it out. And then we have 8 weeks after that to go on the longest stretch we could possibly go on to make a playoff run. That's how they're going to approach this. I don't think it's going to work. I think this is a bad year for them, but it's just what happens in the NFL. It's a constantly revolving door of up and down, bad and good. And the Steelers are in a bad. And it's honestly okay. Starting the first part of this was admitting how bad they are. I think that's a positive step to say, this team isn't untouchable like they've acted like they were for the last 5 years. So I agree with that. All right, let's head out of here with this one. Calvin Austin this week. I don't think it's going to happen this week, just because they're going to give Steven Sims another shot at punt and kick returner after the eye injury. And then next week, I would say next week heading to Philadelphia is when they're going to activate Calvin Austin, put him out there. And I expect good things from Calvin Austin. I really do. But you got to catch up. Missing that much time, you got to get in football shape, and you got to readjust to the offense, the whole nine. So I would say next week is what we're looking at. 100%.
Yeah, he hasn't played an NFL football game before.
Never.
He's a rookie, missed the whole preseason. It'll take some time.
Yep, it will take some time. All right, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to find us on or subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Find us anywhere you get your podcasts. Just a heads up, I'm starting to drop a daily podcast, possibly tomorrow, possibly Monday. That will only be audio, so make sure that you go subscribe to All Steelers Talk anywhere that you could find their audio. Also thinking about giving a Kenny Pickett jersey away pretty soon, so stick around for some details on that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Go use our promo code at manscaped.com. Steelers are going to be fine, even if it's not this season. Take a deep breath. We'll be back. Peace.